The 1969 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 396 L78, a true powerhouse from the golden age of muscle cars. Back in the 1960s, young drivers were all about speed and excitement. Car companies noticed this trend and started making faster, more powerful vehicles. Chevrolet jumped in with both feet, creating the Chevelle SS 396 to compete with other muscle cars like the Ford Mustang and Dodge Charger. The L78 was the top-of-the-line option for the Chevelle, making it the fastest version you could buy through regular dealerships. Its engine was a beast, originally rated at 425 horsepower when it first came out in 1965. Later, they said it had 375 horsepower, even though nothing had changed under the hood. This engine was tough as nails, with parts made to handle all that power. It had forged steel rods and crank aluminum pistons, and a special camshaft that helped it perform even better. Whether you were cruising down the street or tearing up the racetrack, the L78 was ready for action. You could spot a Chevelle SS 396 L78 from a mile away. It had a unique hood with two bulges, wide stripes, and special Supersport badges. This look made it stand out from other Chevelles and muscle cars on the road. Chevrolet made the L78 to give buyers options. If you wanted serious power, but couldn't afford the super rare and expensive 427 Copo models, the L78 was your ticket to high performance. This smart move helped Chevrolet stay competitive in the muscle car market. The L78 was also built for drag racing, which was hugely popular at the time. Its powerful engine, along with its advanced suspension and transmission options, made it a force to be reckoned with on the drag strip. This reputation for speed and power helped cement its place in car history. Despite how amazing it was back then, the SS 396 L78 isn't as well known today as you might think. One reason is that car technology moved forward quickly, and newer, faster cars came along. Also, many L78s were driven hard and changed a lot by their owners, which often led to breakdowns and wear and tear. Finding an original, unmodified L78 today is pretty rare, which makes them valuable to collectors but less common on the streets. Now, let's talk about how this car performed, because it was seriously impressive for its time. The SS 396 L78 could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 6 seconds. It could also finish a quarter-mile run in less than 14 seconds. These numbers made it one of the fastest cars regular people could buy in 1969. The car's F41 heavy-duty suspension system was a big part of what made it handle so well. This system included strong springs, a large front stabilizer bar, and a special rear suspension setup. All of these parts worked together to keep the car stable during high-speed runs and made it handle better than many other muscle cars of the time. When it came to transmissions, the L78 gave you choices. You could get the M20 or M21 4-speed manual transmissions, or go for the M22 Rock Crusher heavy-duty 4-speed manual, if you wanted something really tough. These transmissions were known for being able to handle the massive amount of power the L78 engine produced. The car also had a heavy-duty 11-inch clutch and a special rear axle that gave it better traction and faster acceleration. In the end, the 1969 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 396 L78 remains a shining example of American muscle car engineering. Its combination of power, design, and performance continues to attract car lovers and collectors who appreciate its important place in automotive history. The 1970 Chrysler 300 Hurst is a special car that came out when muscle cars were all the rage. But this one was different. It mixed the power of a muscle car with the comfort of a luxury car, which wasn't common back then. The Chrysler 300 series first showed up in the mid-1950s. People loved it because it was fancy, but also fast. Fast forward to 1970, and Chrysler wanted to bring back the 300 series with a twist. They teamed up with Hurst Performance, a company known for making high-performance car parts, especially shifters. Hurst had a good name for making muscle cars even better, so this team-up was meant to create a car that stood out from the crowd. The Chrysler 300 Hurst was built on the Chrysler 300 series base. It was a big car, over 18 feet long with 2 doors. They first put these cars together at Chrysler's plant in Detroit. Then they sent them to Hurst's workshop in Pennsylvania. There, Hurst added their own touches to make the cars different from other Chryslers. The idea was to mix Chrysler's know-how with Hurst's performance upgrades. They wanted to make a car that was powerful, stylish, and comfortable all at once. Now, let's talk about how the car looked. The 300 Hurst was designed to turn heads. It had 2 colors, Spinnaker white and Satin tan, with brown and orange stripes. The hood and trunk lid were made of fiberglass, which was unusual for cars back then. These parts were lighter than metal and included a spoiler on the back and a special power bulge on the hood. These features made the car look cool and hinted at how fast it could go. Inside, the 300 Hurst was just as impressive. It had saddle-colored leather seats from the Imperial LeBaron coupe, which made it feel really fancy. Most of these cars had power windows, and some even had air conditioning and a steering wheel that could move in and out. Surprisingly, even though Hurst was known for their shifters, this car didn't have one. Under the hood, the 300 Hurst was a real powerhouse. It had a big 440 cubic inch, 7.2 liters V8 engine. This engine could make 375 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque. It was one of the strongest engines Chrysler had at the time. The engine had special parts, like a 4-barrel carburetor, a special camshaft, better valve springs, and a dual exhaust system that let the engine breathe easier. All of this meant the car could go really fast, especially for something so big. The engine was paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission that was set up to handle all that power. This combination let the 300 Hurst go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 7 seconds. It could also do a quarter-mile run in around 15.3 seconds. These were impressive numbers for such a big car, and they could compete with other muscle cars of the time. To make sure the car could handle all this power, it had strong rear-leaf springs, big front torsion bars, and power disc brakes. These parts helped the car drive and stop better, whether on the highway or at a drag strip. Now here's where things get interesting. They only made 485 of these cars, which makes them pretty rare. This small number was because of a few problems. They started making the cars late in the year, and there was a mix-up between Chrysler and Hurst about who was supposed to advertise the car. Both companies thought the other one was going to do it, so in the end, almost nobody knew about the 300 Hurst. On top of that, Chrysler dealers weren't ready to sell this unique car. Many didn't know how to explain why it was special. The car was also expensive. It cost almost $6,000, which was a lot of money back then. This high price meant that many muscle car fans, who usually wanted cheaper cars, couldn't afford it. Even with these problems, some people did buy the 300 Hurst. They liked that it was both powerful and luxurious. But because it was so different from other muscle cars, and because of the marketing mistakes, not many were sold. This is why the 300 Hurst is so rare today.
The 1969 Mercury Cyclone Spoiler 2. This muscle car is special because it's rare and played a big role in car racing history. Back in the late 1960s, car companies like Ford and Chrysler were in a big competition. They wanted to make cars that could go really fast in NASCAR races. This competition was called the Aero Wars, because they were trying to make cars that could cut through the air better. Mercury, which was part of Ford, made the Cyclone Spoiler 2 to compete with cars like the Dodge Charger Daytona and Plymouth Superbird. The Cyclone Spoiler 2 was built to be super fast on the racetrack. The designers made the front of the car longer and smoother to help it move through the air more easily. This wasn't just about looking cool, it was all about going faster. The long nose and flat grille were really important for making the car speedy. Ford and Mercury had a plan when they made this car. They needed to make a certain number of these special cars for regular people to buy. This was because of NASCAR rules. It cost a lot of money and time to do this, but they thought it was worth it to win races. Now, let's talk about what made this car so cool. It had a powerful engine called the 351 cubic inch Ford Windsor V8. This engine could make 290 horsepower, which means it was really strong. The car also had a special transmission called a Merc-O-Matic 3-speed FMX automatic. This helped the car use all that power smoothly. For racing, they even had an even stronger engine called the Boss 429. The way the Cyclone Spoiler 2 looked was really important. The front end was long and pointed to help it go through the air better. They also changed the sides of the car and made it lower to help it stay steady when going fast. All these changes weren't just for show. They really helped the car go faster on the racetrack. You could get the Cyclone Spoiler 2 in two different color styles. One was called the Dan Gurney Special, which was white with blue stripes. The other was the Cale Yarborough Special, which was red and white. These were named after famous race car drivers. Inside the car, you could get blue or red seats to match the outside colors. The car also had nice seat belts, power steering, and a speedometer that went up to 120 miles per hour. Not many of these cars were made. People think maybe 300 to 500 were built, but no one knows for sure. This makes the Spoiler 2 very rare and valuable today. Making these cars wasn't easy. They had to change a lot of parts on regular Mercury Cyclones to turn them into Spoiler 2. They had to make the front longer, change the rocker panels, and put on a different bumper. This took a lot of work and made each car special. Even though the Cyclone Spoiler 2 was really special, Mercury didn't tell many people about it when it came out. This means not many people knew about it compared to other fast cars from that time, like the Dodge Charger Daytona. Today, this makes the car even more special for people who collect old cars.